Good afternoon, everyone. We're about to start the program in 2 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first lecture series on Philippine planktology. Today we'll be having the second talk. But before we start, I would like to acknowledge our partners in hosting this event. In particular, we have the Institute of Marine Fisheries and Oceanology from the University of the Philippines, Visayas. We also have the Plankton Society of the Philippines and the Philippine Planktology. So before we start, I'll proceed with the house rules. So please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. Questions will be entertained during the open forum. Another one is that to ask a question during the open forum, kindly raise your hand and wait for the moderator to call you in. You may also type in your questions in the Q&A box, and please do not spam the chat box. Lastly, kindly accomplish the evaluation form that we will be sending after the program. And then this will be the basis for your certificate. For the program, we'll start at 2, and then we'll proceed with the introduction of the speaker. We allotted 50 minutes for the talk proper, and then we'll be having a longer open forum for this talk, and then awarding of the certificate for the speaker, and then the closing remarks. Okay, and to provide the opening remarks, we have Christy, who is also the page admin of the Philippine Planktology page and the current vice president of the Plankton Society of the Philippines. So let's all welcome Christy.
Hello, maayong hapon. Magandang hapon sa lahat. Good afternoon and tajahao. First of all, I would like to call out the participants in this event. So far, we have participants from UP Visayas, UST, Central Luzon State University, MSU IIT, UP Diliman, Visayas State University, Capiz State U, Napocor, Don Mariano Marcos Memorial State U, Cebu Technological University, Leyte Normal University, Laguna State Polytechnic University, Cavite State University, Bohol Island State University. We have participants from CIFTEC, DepEd, National Taiwan University, and also we have a guest from Qatar University. Welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us today in our first lecture series of Philippine Planktology. So the Philippine Planktology page, in partnership with the Institute of Marine Fisheries and Ocean Sciences and Oceanology from UP Visayas, and also the Plankton Society of the Philippines, organized this first lecture series in planktology to open the opportunity to inspire young Filipinos to study plankton. The Philippines, as we all know, is surrounded by the oceans and inland waters, which requires more exploration. So the topics covered in this lecture series, as you see in the program, it is covering quite an encompassing variation of topics from taxonomy to ecology and to the conservation and management of fisheries. So we really hope that this first lecture series will inspire a lot of you young Filipinos, young people to join the bandwagon to explore and study the life of the drifters. So I hope today we will learn a lot of insights from the lecture of our guest speaker, Dr. Ray Don Papa. Thank you.
And to introduce our speaker for today, it's my honor to introduce Dr. Ray Donnie S. Papa. He got his PhD from the University of Santo Tomas, and he's also currently the professor from the same a full professor from the same university. He's now serving as the Dean of the College of Science, University of Santo Tomas. So in terms of his work and background, Dr. Papa works on freshwater zooplankton taxonomy and ecology. He leads the Zooplankton Ecology, Systematics, and Limnology Laboratory in the University of Santo Tomas. His team collected different samples zooplankton samples from different freshwater bodies all over the Philippines. And from these collections, they started the UST Zooplankton Reference Collection, which is considered as the only known collection of preserved zooplankton or preserved freshwater zooplankton in the country. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our second speaker for the first Philippine Planktology lecture, Dr. Ray Donnie S. Papa.
Okay, so good afternoon, magandang hapon sa inyong lahat. And thank you very much, Louie and Christy, for the invite to be given the opportunity to talk about our research interest, our common research interest, which is, of course, plankton. So I'd like to share my screen. Okay. So I can begin the talk. Okay. So I entitled my talk, ZESEL Outputs from 2011 to 2021. This would be the lecture outline for this afternoon's talk. So I divided it into different years, so basically, it will be easier to discuss certain highlights with regards to the strides that we have made in the laboratory, contributing to further knowledge when it comes to Philippine freshwater zooplankton research. I tried my best not to duplicate it with a talk I gave last week, which also focused on freshwater zooplankton. So I will be highlighting a different set of research outputs now, with just very minor overlaps with last week's talk. Okay, so well, of course, I would like to share a bit about what led me down the path of studying zooplankton. It all started with my research on Lake Taal. For my master's degree, I worked on the diet of Sardinella tawilis, the endemic and now endangered freshwater Sardinella found in Lake Taal. Okay, so upon studying its diet, I found that it consumed a big majority of zooplankton in its diet, and that's what started me, getting hooked into studying zooplankton, because I found that it was very challenging to identify zooplankton, and I also found that very little has been done, with regards to more updated researches in terms of taxonomy, in terms of ecology, in terms of life history, and other important aspects of freshwater zooplankton, as well as Lake Taal, in general. So that's what kept my interest going. So nagsimula siya ng master's degree ko, and then eventually it continued, Pero in terms of my formal training, when it comes to studying zooplankton, apart from, of course, learning how to identify them based on taxonomy keys that were available to me when I was doing my master's degree, um, kulang pa, no? So eventually, when I got accepted into the after my master's degree, I got accepted to work as a researcher in the UST RCNS. So these are the events that led, no? Eventually, my first sampling trip to Taal was in 2003. Then by 2004, I had my first set of undergraduate thesis advisees who worked on um, an ectoparasitic isopod in Lake Taal, no? Coralliana grandiventra. Then, as I mentioned, no, my master's was concluded 2005. Then, by 2006, when I got accepted to the RCNS, um, I when I became a regular faculty member of the bio department of UST, I was already assigned my first formal set of advisees. Kasi yung advisees ko nung 2004, I was a co-advisor, no, because I was a still a teaching assistant that time. So, nung nagkaroon na ako ng mga students, and because my interest on zooplankton has already been piqued, I assigned them to work on zooplankton already. So these are photos, no, of the ones in the left and right are photos of some of my first set of undergraduate students. No, I couldn't find the others, no, who also did work. And then the picture in the middle was my first sampling trip to Mindanao, no, when I was already a researcher in the RCNS. And then by 2007, this is where I first met Dr. Metilio, the speaker during the first lecture, no, for this plankton lecture series. And also Dr. Mary Mar Noblezada in 2007 when I got the chance to present a poster containing the research that we had done on Lake Pawai together with some undergraduates, wherein we looked at the effect of blooms of a green algae, no, Botryococcus brownie, on the zooplankton community of Lake Pawai. So this was my first international trip, and basically it actually also opened a lot of doors, no, in terms of future collaborators who I'll be working with in my future projects. Okay, particularly those who already have been established working on zooplankton ecology, others who were beginning or up and coming scientists as well. In this photo, for example, you have Dr. Yuji Machida, who is also with Academia Sinica in Taiwan, and is Louis' PhD supervisor. So this is where I first met him and several other scientists, no, who worked on zooplankton. But this was a good mix of freshwater and marine zooplankton scientists who I met during this conference. So that kind of raised the level of excitement and with me, no, when it came to my parang newfound passion, no, to work on zooplankton. But then, of course, I still barely knew anything about zooplankton beyond what I learned from my thesis. And so in 2008, the following year, I had the opportunity to attend a training organized in Indonesia by the Indonesian Institute of Sciences, LIPI, together with JSPS. Many of the teachers in that course were also people I met during the zooplankton production symposium, no, and this was the first time I also got to meet Dr. Campos, no, who will be the third speaker, no, for this lecture series. So this got me exposed, no, in so many ways to things that previously I barely had an idea about, no, when it comes to working on zooplankton sampling, on taxonomy, on different methods to be used. So I really enjoyed, no, the all the new learnings that I was able to obtain during this particular time. And then when I was already planning into my PhD, I of course knew that I had to reach out to the foremost Filipino freshwater zooplanktologist of that time. So I started corresponding with Professor Augustus Mamaril of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Of course, this was very timely because the undergraduate students who were working with me during that time, no, went to visit Prof. Mamaril in his office in Diliman, and then soon after that, I also set up a meeting, no, and that started um, a collaboration, and more importantly, a friendship and a mentorship that lasts up to now, no. And of course, here we are, the two of us, during the second Philippine Symposium on Freshwater Biodiversity and ecosystems. And I'm happy that my students in the lab, including Louis and all the others, no, Shea, Eric, and all the others, no, also consider Sir Mamaril as their parang grandfather mentor, no, especially, no, when one works on freshwater zooplankton in the Philippines. So one will not be able to go ahead without having to look at some of his most important contributions to the field, no, in terms of his publications. So this was followed by, well, in 2008, I was very happy because my master's thesis eventually got published, no, after 3 years of sleeping. I got it finally accepted in zoological studies. And then later on, I started working on my PhD work, a 1 year sampling towards my PhD dissertation, again in Lake Taal, but this time focusing on zooplankton community of Lake Taal. And then the following year was work done on the DVM of the zooplankton in Lake Taal, and also some hydroacoustic studies, which was part 2 of my PhD. And then by 2010, I was given the opportunity to go to Germany for a 6-month research fellowship, no, care of DAAD, the Limnological Institute of the University of Constance. So there I was able to do more analysis of the data that I've collected from Lake Taal, do exhaustive taxonomic analysis of some of the specimens that I was not able to identify properly when I was still in UST, and other stuff, no, which of course helped me a lot develop expertise, or develop enough knowledge, no, to carry me throughout my research career and my PhD studies, of course. And of course, well, I was lucky enough that by 2011, 3 articles that I wrote for based on my PhD had been accepted and published in international journals. And then eventually I was able to defend my dissertation, leading to my graduation. So I was part of the quadricentennial batch of UST. So this was in 2011, no, the year that UST celebrated its 400th year. And what came out from these pre-Zessel years? So, of course, apart from me working on trying to learn more about zooplankton, and of course, building up my knowledge, and then obtaining my master's, and then eventually my PhD degrees. That was an opportunity for me to collect samples from Lake Cebu, Lahit, and Siloton in South Cotabato, as well as a lot of samples, of course, from Lake Taal based on my PhD, and Laguna de Bae as part of some of the works of my undergraduate students, and write some initial papers, in local or national journals, and also some international publications as well. Okay, so all leading up to what will be happening in the next decade or so of my professional career. So eventually, what I'll be sharing with you now, is the ZES in ZESEL. When I finished my PhD, I established the Zooplankton Ecology and Systematics and Limnology Research Group in UST. Of course, I do a lot of limnology work together with my students and our collaborators. But for this afternoon, I will be sharing with you um, some of the major highlights of the researches that we have been conducting on ecology and systematics of freshwater zooplankton. So, where do I start? No? So, I consider 2011 to 2014 as the time when I, together with the first cohort of students that I've had, were setting the stage, for what was to happen for the succeeding years. And so the first research proposal I submitted for funding with the UST RCNS was that of the zooplankton reference collection. Okay, so I partnered with Professor Henry Dumont and Professor Boping Han. Professor Henry Dumont used to be with Ghent University, where he was already an emeritus during this time, but he accepted a professorship in Jinan University, and the director of the Institute of Hydrobiology during that time was Professor Boping Han. And when Professor Dumont was trying to look for potential collaborators in Southeast Asia he can work with, to do more studies on zooplankton in the area, he sent me an email after seeing my name appear in some of the early papers that I've shown you a while ago. So his first correspondence with me was when I was still in Germany, and I said that in a year's time, hopefully I can go back to the Philippines. And the moment that I did, he immediately visited the country together with Professor Han. So this is the first photo I have with my first two students, Dino Tordesillas and JC Briones, both of whom are already also finished with their PhDs. Dr. Tordesillas continued on to work on calanoid copepods, for his master's and PhD. And then you will see his name pop up later, in some of the other papers that I've shown you. So this was this trip, yung mga nasa pictures na yan, were taken from the Seven Lakes of San Pablo, where we conducted our first field work. We were given a very small amount, by PICAMARD as a support for this particular research expedition. But it was enough for us. We were a very young research group. We were very excited to actually have been given money at that point even. And we were happy that we had additional support to be able to conduct our fieldwork then. The following year, we signed a MOA with Jinan University to conduct more collaborative research with Professor Henry Dumont. So that was also a chance for me to talk with Henry and Boping about future possible research plans, that we would have in the future. And this trip was not funded by anyone. I spent my own money for this particular trip, just to make sure that the MOA would get signed, and then that we would be able to talk about future research collaborations, no? So it was relatively, no, bumalik naman yung pinuhunan ko na personal money pagdating dito sa trip na ito, because plenty of my students were able to work with Henry and Boping for future research projects. And then additional exposure was given to me when I had the chance to visit INRA in France. This is the Institute for National Research and Agronomy, and they have a station beside Lake Geneva, where I learned about how they actually store and conduct research on long term, no, using samples that have been collected decades ago, and which were all stored in the cellar of that building, no, which is an old house located at the back of the research center. And by 2012, I was also given the chance to stay in the lab of Dr. Maria Holinska, who is one of the experts, no, in freshwater cyclopid taxonomy. And again, given na wala nga akong formal training talaga on copepodology, all my previous experiences, no, working with my other collaborators, together with what I learned, no, from my 1 month stay with Professor Holinska in Warsaw, helped give me enough ideas on what I needed to do with the reference collection that we wanted to establish in UST, and how we will build, no, the research program that we have, or that we want to have, no, in the university. So by 2013, a series of fieldworks with Eric Rizzo here when he was still working on his master's degree. Now he's a faculty member in UP Visayas, no, after he finished his PhD with Henry and Boping. So we went on fieldwork in central and northern Luzon. You see here very muddied up Henry Dumont after falling sa may pilapil, no, sa bukid, when we were going to one of the dams, no, in Cagayan. So it was a series of unfortunate events that happened to Henry, but we all made up for it later when we were able to find very interesting specimens, no, from the samples collected during this trip. Na dengue pa si Professor Dumont during this particular time, which was also very, very memorable for me and my students, no, having to stay with him in the hospital when he had dengue, no, which he contracted most probably when we were in Zambales, no, near Mount Pinatubo. So as far as the research highlights from this early period, number one would be our involvement in the Lakehead project of RIN, led by Professor Ryohei Kada, together with LLDA and UP Los Baños. I was actually invited to join here by my PhD advisor, Dr. Macrina Zafaralia, who of course knew my work on zooplankton, no, because of my PhD. Tapos nung nagkaroon ng project with Laguna de Bae, ayan, isinama naman niya ako, no, for that. So we were able to publish an updated listing of zooplankton that we were able to identify from Laguna de Bae during this time, which we were able to publish as a short paper in Acta Manilana. Then in 2012, as a result of the sampling that I got to conduct with Professor Dumont, Boping, and Dino, together with samples that were collected during the past, as well as samples that Dino was able to collect with Huiming Li, one of the master students of Henry Dumont based in China. We were able to publish this paper. And it spurred a series of other studies that we were able to conduct on the invasive Arctodiaptomus dorsalis. Okay. Actually, the story of Arctodiaptomus dorsalis, apparently it's a species that has first been reported from in Laguna de Bae, na-identify na rin ni Henry nung merong mga staff ng LLDA na nagpunta sa Ghent University for a workshop on zooplankton taxonomy. But then that never got published. Okay, and then later on, when I was doing my PhD, I initially misidentified this specimen. In my first paper, in one of my first papers on Taal zooplankton that I published, I identified it as Tropodiaptomus vicinus. But then later on, sabi ko parang hindi ako satisfied, hindi ako happy do sa identification na to. And then later on, true enough, upon seeing the specimens that I previously identified as Tropodiaptomus vicinus, and then looking at all the other specimens that shared similar characteristics that were collected from different parts of the Philippines, it turned out kaya pala mali yung identification, or kaya pala hirap na hirap akong ma-identify siya, was because the keys I were looking at were all regional keys, national keys even. But then Arctodiaptomus dorsalis is a neotropical species, and therefore it was not found in any of the regional keys that we have. And one of the things that you should know about freshwater zooplankton is that they are highly regional. The keys that are found that are from our region would not necessarily yield the same species when you are in the neotropics, when you are in the Palearctic. So kaya pala. Okay? And we were glad that eventually we were able to correct that, and eventually come up with this paper that reported on the distribution of Arctodiaptomus dorsalis in a lot of freshwater ecosystems throughout the Philippines. And then I showed you a while ago about the training that I had with Professor Holinska in Warsaw. That led now to another paper which was published in 2013, which provided an overview of, this time, limnetic cyclopids of the Philippines, with particular emphasis on Mesocyclops. Okay, so in this particular paper, so apart from being able to document all these different species of cyclopids, from Mesocyclops microlasius, which was endemic, and found in Lake Paway, with others which were more distributed, such as Mesocyclops thermocyclopoides or Thermocyclops crassus. We were able to describe a new species, which we named in honor of Professor Augustus Mamaril, Mesocyclops augusti, which we were able to describe using specimens that were collected from Lake Siloton in South Cotabato in Mindanao Island. So apart from those, we also were able to find other interesting cyclopids, such as Thermocyclops decipiens and Thermocyclops taihoquensis. Now, yung kinakita ko kaninang picture ni Professor Dumont na putikan, ang maswerte naman na kinalabasan after nung fieldwork na yon is that contributed heavily to the publication that came out by 2014, wherein two of my master's students, J.D. Pascual and Eric Rizzo, worked on the cladocerans naman this time, particularly those that belong to Moinidae, Bosminidae, Chidoridae, and Psididae. Okay, so here they were able to document more properly the taxonomy and the distribution of these four cladoceran families. Okay. So we were able to document around 16 species belonging to these four families. So these are just some, particularly for moinids and bosminids. So they were mostly encountered in Luzon and Mindanao. Apparently, they're very rare in the Visayas. And for family Psididae and Chidoridae, they were more distributed throughout the archipelago. So the 16 species that we were able to document in this paper in 2014 were actually lower than previous estimates that we have had on Cladocera, particularly if you compare it to the one published by Professor Mamaril in 1978 and eventually again in 1986 and in 2001. But compared to those papers, for example, we are more confident now of the taxonomy that we have been able to come up with to identify these species. And we got to cover more sites. And this means that we are able to understand better patterns of distribution among cladocerans collected from different parts of the Philippines. So key takeaways from these early years would be that we are dealing with a very exciting field of research. So that plenty of new records await us, and that we need more accurate taxonomic work in order to really be sure about what we are studying. Okay, and that there is a non-native species of inland water copepod that is present in the Philippines, and that this is a very promising prospect for further research. So the next stage would be 2015 to 2018, wherein we evolved now to answering curious questions that cropped up when we first did our investigations from 2011 to 2014. So these include, where else can we find Arctodeaptomus dorsalis and what made it establish successfully in Philippine inland waters? And what about zooplankton fauna of other parts of the country? So what other species can we find? And what about groundwater ecosystems? So they also have microcrustaceans. So what species can we find from these places? And lastly, we've studied Taal zooplankton exhaustively. So what else could we possibly find there? So from these different questions, my students did further studies. So for Dino Tordesillas' PhD work, he worked now on looking at the effects of varying food concentrations on the reproductive capacity of the Arctodeaptomus dorsalis, as well as the effect of temperature on the life history traits of A. dorsalis. So pinanindigan na niya after the first work that we have done on Arctodeaptomus dorsalis. So he continued working on it for his PhD and came up with these two papers that were able to document or were able to look at why A. dorsalis actually became quite successful as an invader here, because that it needed higher food concentrations, and this is of course very much apparent in the Philippines because of the high nutrient levels that we have for our water bodies. And of course, given that Ader salis is also from the Neotropics, it worked best. No, the survival of Ader salis was much better. No, for example, in 30 degrees Celsius. No, and the Dino was able to do all these observations using cultures, no, of Ader salis in the laboratory, which he reared, no, in incubators. No, some were makeshift incubators, so others were more um, laboratory grade incubators. And then eventually he also went to Japan, in the University of Shiga Prefecture, where he did other types of analysis, including studying respiration rates, no, for Archaeopteryx dorsalis, which we hope would get published soon as well. Okay. So apart from this study on A. dorsalis, by the way, this is the first time that studies on the biology of A. dorsalis had been done. No? So before, it was just merely taxonomic that had been done on the Philippine samples of A. dorsalis. But ngayon, we are trying to go more into looking at studies into its life history and then biology. So apart from that, one of my students who decided now to look at cyclopid copepods more closely, no, after I did the initial work with Dr. Holinska, Erica Silk de la Paz, who is now also a PhD student in Taiwan, no, for her master's, decided to concentrate on looking at the distribution of Mesocyclops and Thermocyclops, this time in the Visayas. And these are the results that she was able to find. She was able to document a new locality record for Mesocyclops microlasius in Cebu, and Mesocyclops wootersea, which was a new Philippine record meanwhile. Okay. And more importantly, she was able to also do training, no, or stay, no, with Dr. Holinska for I think 1 or almost 2 months then, no, for the analysis of the specimens that she was working on. And this led again, no, to several further papers that we came up, no, looking at the distribution of cyclopid copepods. So apart from that initial paper, so her master's thesis focused on the Visayas, but then we also had samples collected from other parts of Luzon and Mindanao, and we were able to document new locality records for these two genera from Luzon and Mindanao, so totaling to 8 species, no, recorded from different sampling sites that are considered to be new records. And that was a very interesting contribution, no, to the distribution of cyclopid copepods in Philippine inland waters. Now, during the same time, Louis, when he was still working for his master's thesis, no, was the one who focused on groundwater-dependent ecosystems. So for his master's thesis, he was working on microcrustacean assemblages, no, from groundwater-dependent ecosystems in Luzon and Mindoro. And we were able to publish a paper in Inland Waters in 2017. And looking, for example, at this NMDS plot, no, which would show you similarities in the communities that for example, no, or distinctions between communities that were found in wet or dry springs, no, in pumps, no, during the dry season, which were very different from those collected from the wet season, no, when you're talking about pumps. And then you also have the communities that were collected from wells, no, and caves, no, during the wet and dry season, which were more or less much similar compared to all the others, no. And you would see here in this table, no, the average the similarities, no, in the abundance and the different taxa that Louis was able to document from these groundwater dependent ecosystems. And Louis and Silk later worked with several undergraduate students in our laboratory. So rather than going out, no, of Metro Manila, I said, let's try to revisit Metro Manila and see what we can find, no, in the different freshwater bodies that we have here in Metro Manila. So this group of undergraduate students, no, under the supervision of Louis and Silk, went around different areas in Metro Manila and started collecting samples, no, from these different parts. And surprisingly, even though we were thinking, kasi may studies naman na ginawa before si Sir Mamaril, as well as Cheng and Clemente, for example, on the zooplankton of different parts of Metro Manila, we were still able to find new records, no, particularly for Mesocyclops aspericornis, no, and also for Thermocyclops decipiens and Thermocyclops taihoquensis, and even new records, no, for Arctodiaptomus dorsalis and the endemic, no, Filipinodiaptomus insulanus. So kahit pala na ganito yung situation ng water bodies natin, no, meron pa ring interesting patterns, no, or interesting species na makikita, or even new records na makikita when it comes to the zooplankton of the different, well, you would assume highly impacted water bodies, no, in Metro Manila. And then by 2017, no, the later part, we were confident enough to come up already with a checklist, no, and a detailed distribution of the different freshwater microcrustaceans that we have been studying. So we were able to publish this checklist in the Raffles Bulletin of Zoology. So far, it is the most updated checklist, no, on the taxonomy, distribution, and current status of Philippine freshwater microcrustaceans, no, from 139 different sites in the country that we have been able to visit, as well as those from other studies, no, or other authors na may nag-conduct din ng studies on Philippine freshwater zooplankton. So we were able to document around 91 species from all the different studies that have been conducted on Philippine freshwater zooplankton. So this would be around 55 cladocerans and 36 species of copepods. But then we were not done yet, no, because by 2018, we were able to find a new record for this genus, no, in the Philippines. So this is the genus Philodiaptomus, no. So the exact species that we were able to record from Candaba Swamp was Philodiaptomus predictus sulawensis. This was first revealed from samples collected in Candaba Swamp during the trip that we took with Henry Dumont in 2012. Okay? Tapos later on, nung may mga bumalik kami ng mga students doon, that's when we were able to confirm that indeed, no, yung species na nung una na-identify namin lang as, well, Philodiaptomus sp, no, apparently, no, ito, upon further investigation, we were able to fully identify it, no, even up to subspecies level, no. So Philodiaptomus predictus sulawensis. And by that time, no, so we were able to already finalize or at least have a good idea about the Philippine records that are found in our well, at least according to the database that we have been gathering. So for Calanoida, Cyclopoida, Harpacticoida, Caudocera, and Protifera. Okay, but the thing is, there are known, of course, to be around 29 synonymies and misidentifications in the previous papers that we have also encountered. And then another leftover from my PhD work was the redescription of Pseudodiaptomus bremi, which I was able to identify initially as part of my PhD work, from Lake Taal. But although I was able to identify it together with Chad Walter as Pseudodiaptomus bremi, one of the things that he wanted or he suggested that I do was to redescribe the species. But then during the time that we were talking about that, nagmamadali na rin ako na matapos ng PhD. And since this wasn't really part of my dissertation objective, so hindi ko muna siya ginawa. And then by this time, 2018, Ishaya Ginto, who was working then for her master's thesis, decided to work on Pseudodiaptomus bremi as one of the topics of her master's thesis. And therefore, one of the papers that came out based on her master's thesis is the redescription of this endemic freshwater calanoid copepod. Now, for Pseudodiaptomus bremi, it was first described from specimens collected from Lake Nauhan in Mindoro. But then during the field work of Dino Tordesillas and Huiming Lee in 2011, wala na silang nakitang Pseudodiaptomus bremi sa Lake Nauhan. At puro Arctodiaptomus dorsalis na lang ang nakita nila doon. Pero sa Lake Taal, lagi pa rin namin siyang nakikita. So eventually in this paper, we were able to redescribe it based on specimens that were deposited in Germany, in the Smithsonian, as well as the samples that we were able to collect from Lake Taal, but not anymore from Lake Nauhan, where probably it is already locally extirpated and was one of the negative impacts of the occurrence now of Arctodiaptomus dorsalis in Lake Nauhan. So maswerte na lang na sa Lake Taal nakakapag-coexist pa ang Arctodiaptomus dorsalis at saka ang Pseudodiaptomus bremi. Most probably because they were utilizing different niches in the lake. But other than that, we will later on see how Pseudodiaptomus bremi are actually considered to be rare in Lake Taal compared to Arctodiaptomus dorsalis. And then, kala namin wala nang natitira pa sa Lake Taal, naaral na lahat ng dapat maaral, pati yung specimen na utang ko pa na ma-redescribe ay hindi pa rin, na-redescribe na. But then, one of my master's students, Ida Pontillas, worked on Harpacticoid copepods in Lake Taal. Of course, these are not plankton anymore. They lived in the bentos. But these are copepods from a different family, Harpacticoida. And she was able to document the presence of these 4 species in Lake Taal. Now, the interesting thing with these 4 species was that similar to Tawilis and the Lake Taal sea snake, which are both from marine origins, these 4 species were only known from marine and or brackish water habitats in other parts of the world. But in Lake Taal, they occurred in a freshwater environment, which actually also points out to the fact that indeed, Lake Taal's active volcanism, which led to the closure of that part of Balayan Bay into this freshwater lake, also trapped inside it specimens similar to these 4 harpacticoids, which were able to adapt to the freshwater environment in Lake Taal, even though in other countries they are found in marine and or brackish water environments. For all you know, further studies on these four species might reveal something more interesting, no? And I hope someone would also take the challenge to work on those later on. So key takeaways from 2015 to 2018. So Arctodiaptomus dorsalis is here for a reason. It loves the conditions in the inland water bodies of the Philippines. Now there's more to freshwater than lakes. No, when Louis decided to look into groundwater environments, more taxa, new records, interesting patterns have been documented, and that there are still new species and or locality records found in other freshwater habitats. And even in a relatively well-studied ecosystem such as Lake Taal, there are still lots of potential research areas to explore. And the last part of my talk would be 2019 to 2021. So this part I consider to be the next gen planktology and planktologists. So why do I call it next gen? We started utilizing novel techniques. We had much larger scopes, more challenging problems, and this is more or less led by the next generation, of students that we have had in the laboratory. So I'd like to start this off with this paper that came out 2019, wherein we were able to successfully place now a species that is endemic to Lake Danao in Leyte, which used to be identified as Diaptomus vexillifer. So using molecular and of course morphological techniques, we were able to place it under the genus Filipinodiaptomus. So Filipinodiaptomus is not anymore a single species genus. So it's not anymore monotypic. So we now have two species under Filipinodiaptomus. So that would be Filipinodiaptomus insulanus and Filipinodiaptomus vexillifer. And these two species are endemic to the Philippines still. So tamang-tama ang pagkakapangalan nilalay na Filipinodiaptomus ng genus na ito dahil so far, the two species that belong to this genus are both still only found in the Philippines. So sariling atin, so to speak. So this was this paper involved Hui Ming, our collaborator from China, together with Shea, and then Eric and Francis, together with our other collaborators from Jinan University. And then later, Mark and I co-authored a review paper looking now at data sets looking into the diversity and distribution of copepods in groundwater habitats across Southeast Asia. So you would see here this exhaustive analysis which showed how promising future researches on copepods in groundwater habitats in the region as well as in the Philippines would be. So it's also one of our hopes, and I told Louis never to really give up on studying groundwater organisms after he's done with his PhD, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done in order to really ascertain the species richness and the different factors that contribute to the distribution and diversity of different groundwater microcrustacean taxa. Okay. And when Eric Rizzo went for his PhD in Jinan, he then came up with this paper looking at the global analysis of cladosteren body sizes, and its variation, and then linked it to habitat distribution and taxonomy. So you see how exhaustive this particular analysis is. So looking at the differences in body size, for example, across different biogeographic regions. And eventually, one of the major key takeaways from this research was that the estimated means of and confidence intervals, no, parang you would see how these variations would be structured, no, in different areas. So it's a very challenging work that formed part of Eric's dissertation in Jinan University. And then later on, he worked on establishing the factors, no, that shaped the zooplankton community during springtime, no, in large canyon reservoir in China. So through this analysis, so he was able to look at the differences, no, in the relative abundance of the different zooplankton groups, no, as influenced by different parts of a reservoir. And so meta community processes, no, well, eventually he found out that meta community processes were important in structuring the zooplankton communities in reservoir waterscapes, no, as compared to flow. And one of the more recent papers that we were able to publish was this time back to Arctodiaptomus dorsalis. So for the master's thesis of Ms. Justine De Leon, for example, she worked on depth and productivity as predictive parameters for the widespread invasion of A. dorsalis in tropical lakes. So using the data that she was able to gather, no, from different collections, no, done in different lakes, mostly in southern Luzon, wherein A. dorsalis is quite widespread. She was able to show or see how shallow lakes provide a more suitable habitat, no, for A. dorsalis compared to deep lakes, and that this provides a partial explanation of the widespread occurrence and abundance of the species in shallower and more eutrophic lakes, no, in the Philippines, because the abundance was highly correlated, for example, to chlorophyll A, no, and these were very interesting. And one of the things that we're yet to publish is the comparison now to where we actually found Filipinodiaptomus insulanus. So that revealed how nagkaroon ng partitioning ngayon, no, ng preferred habitat types yung Arctodiaptomus dorsalis at yung Filipinodiaptomus insulanus, na isa rin sa mga possible reasons bakit hindi na-displace pa ng Arctodiaptomus dorsalis yung F. insulanus. Okay? And lastly, well, apart from working now on the planktonic organisms themselves, no, we do have students in the lab who worked on the ectosymbionts, no, particularly these Vorticella and Colacium as epibionts, no, of copepods. And my student who worked on this is Miss Pia Core, who's now taking her PhD in the Czech Republic. Also on protists, no? So pinanindigan niya na yung pagiging protistologist. So here we were able to look at the differences in the places, no, in the body of the copepod where these epibionts have been located, and when, no, the seasonality, no, kung kailan sila nakikita na maraming nakakapit dun sa mga copepods. So I'd like to end with this, no? So this would be documenting or looking at the yet to be published works of our students in the laboratory. So we're still working on some other applied studies on copepods and cladocerans. For example, one PhD student, no, Riza Salinas, is working on the effect of nanomaterials and nanoparticles on A. dorsalis. And the other one, Je Soliven, is working on using Moina, for example, as a possible biocontrol for chytridiomycosis, okay, which is, of course, a fungal disease of frogs, no, of amphibians in general, no, and causing a lot of problems for amphibian biodiversity. So for the PhD work of Michelle Ginto, she's working on genetic diversity and population structure of Ader salis and Filipino Diaptomus insulanus. So again, this time looking at use of molecular techniques, no, for this work. She's doing this in collaboration with Dr. Yuji Machida of Academia Sinica in Taiwan. And then I have another master's student who's working on interspecific and intraspecific trait variability of pelagic cladocerans, no, using the Seven Mar Lakes of San Pablo as the study area. So this is by Ms. Elaine Jose of NFRDI, and she's working closely with Dr. Rizzo for this research. And Mr. Gray Quadrasal is working on 3 genera of cyclopig copepods na hindi pa namin tinitignan ni Silk, which are Eucyclops, Tropocyclops, and Paracyclops. And then part of the ecology work that we're doing, no, is looking at zooplankton in Laguna de Bai using stable isotope analysis. This is part of the EREC project that we have in collaboration with the Research Institute for Humanity and Nature for the past 5 years. And also using fatty acid biomarkers, which is a side project of Ms. Justine De Leon as part of the JSPS grant that we also have with RIN. Okay? And then currently we have a research grant, with the NRCP that's looking at revisiting zooplankton community dynamics in Lake Taal. So together with Dr. Tordesillas and Mr. Elfredson Peralta as well. So I think what I'm pointing to now is that, well, we started out with this very simple, very small part of the laboratory na nabigay sa amin in the RCNS. No? We didn't even have our own microscope back then. Nanghiram lang ako ng isa sa mga teaching microscopes namin sa laboratory, sa teaching labs, no, para makapaggawa ng research on freshwater zooplankton sa UST. Wala naman talaga sa research agenda ng UST ang mag-work sa freshwater environments or even in zooplankton. No? Before I arrived, or before I decided to work there. But then, with God's grace and with the great set of students that I've had from parang sa isang maliit na bagay, so ngayon we have a more complete facility to do our researches in. And for that, I'm very fortunate to have been given the opportunity by UST to really establish a laboratory more dedicated now to more researches on freshwater and on zooplankton. Pero hindi mangyayari lahat yan kung wala yung mga students ko sa laboratory. So from these early set of students that I've had, many of them have stayed on, nagwo-work pa rin sa laboratory, or they're in other institutions already, but they're still collaborating with us. And for that, I'm very fortunate because that means na nagtuloy-tuloy sila ng research nila sa isang bagay na sabay-sabay naman naming sinimulan when we established ZESEL in 2011. So I would guess the future is bright for Philippine freshwater zooplankton ecology, systematics, and limnology. Not really because of me, but it's more because of my students who have been with me in the journey, and hopefully will form the next cohort of students who will form the next set of minds who will work with us, no, in our joint love for plankton research here in the Philippines. So I'd like to thank these different funding organizations for the different kinds of support that have been given to us through the years, and of course our collaborators in the journey that we have had, our foreign and local collaborators in the work on freshwater research, on plankton, on lakes, etc. So I'd like to end with a quote from my favorite scientist, no, E.O. Wilson. So the ideal scientist is smart only to an intermediate degree, bright enough to see what can be done, but not so bright as to become bored doing it. Okay, so I would like to believe that for me and the students who work with me in the laboratory, we are only smart to an intermediate degree because we're not bored doing research on plankton here in the Philippines. So maraming salamat sa inyong lahat.
Thank you very much, Sir Ray, for the very informative and inspiring talk. So maybe if one thing that natutunan ko from this talk is that if you're planning to build a lab, like aim higher, maybe build a family out of your lab. Because I'm part of it and I still feel that we're still a family up until now. So we'll proceed with the question and answer. We collated questions from both Zoom and Facebook Live. And the first question, sir, is that most of our participants are from Visayas region. And you've mentioned in one of your slides that for freshwater zooplankton, especially for cladocerans, we have less abundant species in Visayas. So what could be the possible reason with the Visayas inland water?
Actually, I don't really know if it's just because mababa ba siya talaga o hindi lang tayo tumitingin sa tamang lugar. Kasi we have focused mostly the collections on major freshwater bodies. The major lakes that are there, no, yung mga Danao, sa Leyte, sa Negros, in parts of Cebu, and also some major river systems. Pero baka mamaya yung diversity ng mga microcrustaceans mas mataas in the more remote areas. So hindi pa tapos yung kwento with that kung tutuusin. Baka mamaya pagka mayroong nangahas na mag-sampling dun sa mga, let's say, high elevation lakes na excited ako na sana may makapunta, no, na para mag-research on these high elevation lakes or groundwater dependent ecosystems, no, baka mamaya mas mataas yung diversity, but at least so far for the surface waters, yun yung lumalabas na pattern. It may be because these habitats probably mas bata sila, or yung exposure sa salinity dahil sa size ng mga islands, baka factor yon. So there are a host of possible factors, no, that can contribute to that, but hindi pa ako nawawalan ng pag-asa na talagang mababa siya, no, may posibilidad na mataas siya in other uncharted territories pa.
Okay. And then another question, I think it's from Central Luzon State University. So they have a lot of rice paddies in Central Luzon. So have you tried collecting samples from rice paddies, and what can we expect from this ecosystem?
Well, even as early as the works of Sir Mamaril, no, Philippinodiaptomus insulanus was collected from rice paddies, no, in parts of Central Luzon. So I would think, no, more calanoid copepods, definitely cladocerans, no, yung mga cedids, for example, na inaaral ni Eric before, marami pang makikita sa mga sa mga rice paddies. Of course, connected heavily to the irrigation systems na nakakabit sa kanila, as well as, Philodiaptomus was collected from rice paddies. Okay, and na connected sa Candaba Swamp, no? Tapos connected din sa mga riverine systems, no? Kung saan galing yung tubig na pinang-irrigate dun sa rice paddies na yan. So I guess, no, for that, no, we're giving you an idea what possible research topic to pursue. I feel that we haven't really done enough research on Central Luzon, actually, despite the huge rivers, no, the yun nga, the plains that are there, no, the rice paddies that are there. Marami pang maaaral dyan na interesting.
Nice. And then another question, I think this is from Mindanao. So we've heard Lake Siloton and Lake Cebu from South Cotabato. How about studying zooplankton in Lake Lanao in Mindanao?
Okay, there's a very funny story to this that I think, no, my students all know already. Kami ni Dr. Metilio, nag-collab kami to study Lanao zooplankton before. But I was, of course, very careful that time, no, not to parang expose myself to the security, peace and order situation in that place. So what even Dr. Metilio, no, so what he did was he assigned students who are Maranaos. Apparently, no, they have ang term pa nga nun was parang they're part of royal family or nobility sila doon sa area. So they're quite established really na mga Maranaos. And they were the ones, the students ni Dr. Metilio sa Iligan na nag-collect ng samples sa Lake Lanao. Tapos when we were about to have the workshop in Iligan, na conducted din ng JSPS. I think that was the first time I met Christy. Nandun ako sa lab, nag-aantay. So, bit-bit ng mga estudyante yung mga samples from Lake Lanao. And that's where we did the studies. Hindi ako mismo yung pumunta sa Lanao to conduct the collection because of yun nga. But we do, and based on the work na ginawa ng mga students na yun, we were able to come up with a paper that documented the presence of A. dorsalis in Lake Lanao, which was also very sad because Lake Lanao is supposedly home to at least 3 endemic calanoid copepods, no, from the genus Tropodiaptomus, no, na hindi na namin nakita. And instead, puro A. dorsalis na lang yung nakita namin. So that's the story with that. But hopefully, sabi nga ni Henry Dumont, no, ang Lake Lanao daw ang isa lang sa mga ancient lakes sa mundo na hindi pa niya na ilulublob ang kanyang plankton net. Similarly, I would like to say that, well, Lake Lanao is one of the lakes that I also want to see before I die. But at present time, no, parang I will hold on to that idea much longer and wait for the perfect time to be able to go there and conduct more studies because we will really want to see, no, the dynamics of A. dorsalis in the area.
Thank you, sir. Another question, I think this is a good question. These are faculties and maybe students collecting samples of freshwater zooplankton in different parts of the country. And then they are asking if UST is accepting like contribution of samples so that they can contribute samples to the reference collection.
Yes, definitely. Yes, definitely. No, we just send us an email, and then the most important thing is to collect the zooplankton properly. Kasi if you remember, Louis, before, one of the issues usually is that they were collected using, let's say, ang fixation nila, ang ginagamit pang phytoplankton, nakalugols. So definitely, pagdating sa atin, di ba, hindi na siya maayos for taxonomic work. So the important thing really is to know how to properly collect and at least fix them. And then later on, when the COVID situation gets better, it would be easy to send them to UST, and we will be happy to teach you actually how to identify them more than just letting us identify, kasi part of all of this is really educating those who want to work on zooplankton. So we want you to learn. So I would encourage you, pag okay na yung travel yon, punta kayo sa lab, dala kayo ng specimens, trabahuhin natin using our facilities. Of course, we store some in the lab later for further studies, no? But gusto namin ma-bring home ninyo din yung knowledge ng paano ba mag-ID, paano ba mag-sort, mag-store ng mga samples na yan. So, yun.
And then I think this is related question, sir. So most of our audience are asking, what are the materials or reference that we can use to properly identify zooplankton samples?
I guess well, yun nga, as I mentioned in my talk, no, one of the more exhaustive listings that we have is the 2017 annotated list, no, natin ng freshwater zooplankton, kasi more or less medyo nahalughog na natin yung literature, no, so alam na kung saan nakikita si ganito, synonym na ba ito, misidentified kaya ito, so even in the notes nakalagay na, so that's a good reference part, no, yung Lopez et al. 2017 Raffles Bulletin of Zoology. But I think more than that, you can also start looking into the Petersen online database on freshwater zooplankton. So this is by Fleming Petersen, who's a retired scientist with the Danish scientific agency, who used to collaborate a lot with CIFDEC, no, in the past. So you can use that as guide. So Fleming was kind enough to really update also based on our more recent papers yung kanyang online database. So these two are good initial references. And then of course, many of our papers naman are available online, so they can use the taxonomy papers, no, for description. And then later on, you can have us validate kung tama ba yung nakita ninyo. I think that's more important, no, yung validation din, kasi nga minsan sa unang tingin parang mabuti na yung pinapakita rin dun sa mas familiar, no, sa taxa na inaaral nila.
We're receiving a lot of questions, pero I think I can accommodate last two. One question, sir, is how can we transition from like knowing the biology of the freshwater zooplankton to actually rearing them for hatchery so that we can feed them to fish or...
Actually, even before we started doing the basic work, no, the taxonomy, the life history work, marami nang gumagawa ng pag-culture ng zooplankton as live feed already. These have been established in the past na, and it's actually a very good alternative to using artificial feeds, no? What we are actually advocating is the proper taxonomy behind these, because for many instances, parang ang nangyayari, catch-all na lang yung genus na Daphnia pag sinabing water flea, no? Pero makikita mo yung mga nasa aquarium industry, di ba? Mag-search ka lang, balita ko kahit sa Shopee meron na daw, no? Basta live feed ng isda sa aquarium, Daphnia na kaagad yun. Pero pag tinignan mo, hindi yun talaga Daphnia, or it's Moina, or naalala ko pa dati may isa pang genus na totally hindi man Cladocera na ina-advertise as Daphnia. So it's just merely correcting the taxonomy in many cases. But sa A. dorsalis, yun nga, more investigations can probably yield information on whether, kasi nandiyan na siya, invasive na siya, introduced na siya, anong gagawin natin sa kanya. So probably in the future, pag mas malaman natin ano ba yung nutritional value niya, no? Gaano ba karaming fatty acids yung meron siya? Okay ba siyang alternative to other natural feeds such as moina? Baka nga naman pwedeng mag-develop na rin ng program yung mga nasa aquaculture industry para gamitin na lang si A. dorsalis, no, for live feed.
Okay, thank you, sir. And then the last question, I think it's mostly for students like me, like PhD students going back to Philippines. What are the challenges in studying zooplankton in the Philippines, and how can we maybe start a lab or start studying zooplankton?
Yung sa zooplankton kasi, yun nga, hopefully we've laid the groundwork na on ano yung mga maganda pang aralin pagkatapos. So, yun, parang take it from there. So, identified na natin yung mga gaps, at least those that arose from all these plannings and discussions, no? Lumabas na ano yung pwedeng tutukang susunod. So, if you have the interest to pursue that as a topic for when you come back, you can always go back to that and establish, no, or do more research on the area. Pero I think more importantly, wag panghihinaan ng loob. Hindi similar with all other fields of science in the Philippines, no. Hindi talaga siya conducive sa simula. Pero sino ba dapat yung gagawa na maging conducive siya? So it's up to us na gawin yon. It's never going to be an easy road. As I mentioned earlier, I started out with only one or two other persons in UST who appreciate and who know about zooplankton. I'm talking about Dr. Baldia, who did her master's thesis na nagpapakain nga ng moina sa fishes, no, sa Seaf Deck when she was working there, and Ma'am Alice Pagulayan, because she was the one who encouraged me to study zooplankton more after my master's thesis. So nagsimula lang sa dalawang tao yon na parang nagsasabi sa akin na go, tuloy mo yan, ganyan. But other than that, parang wala talagang may idea kung ano ba yung dapat gawin, or everybody was looking into applied research in UST. And then there were only very few of us who were interested in taxonomy, in ecology. So siguro nga yun, pinaka-importante, wag kang panghinaan ng loob, no? And then eventually find a place wherein you would feel that you are going to be supported. And that's very important. So eventually, no, yun naman yung na-feel ko with UST, na kahit na nung una parang mag-isa lang akong gumagawa nung ganun, I felt the support. And so I continued on. And eto na. So siguro ganun lang ng ganun yung idea, yung mindset dapat, para hindi ka mawala sa sa tamang track.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we'll end the question and answer portion, and I need to acknowledge the number of participants that we have for this event. So we've reached 200 plus participants who logged in Zoom and in Facebook Live. So we'll proceed with the awarding of the certificates to our speaker, Dr. Ray Donnie S. Papa. So I'll just read the certificate, and then, so this is a certificate of appreciation awarded to Dr. Ray Donnie S. Papa in recognition of his outstanding contribution as keynote speaker of presentation entitled UST ZESL Outputs from 2011 to 2020, Improving Our Understanding and Appreciation of the Taxonomy, Biology, and Life History of Philippine Freshwater Copepoda and Cladocera, at the first lecture series on Philippine Planktology on May 10, 2021. So this is signed by Professor Sheila May Santander de Leon, the Director of Institute of Marine Fisheries and Oceanology from UP Visayas, Ms. Christy Acabado, the current Vice President of Plankton Society of the Philippines, and yours truly as the admin of the Philippine Plantology page. Thank you very much, sir, for the time and for the effort.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, sir. And we'll proceed with a closing remark to give you some reminder. First, thank you for attending, and we'll be having the third leg of talk for the series lecture on Philippine Plantology. Also, for the participants, we'll be handing out links to the evaluation form, and this will be the basis for the certificates. So if you failed to fill up the evaluation form, we will not be able to get your email address and send the certificate. So make sure to fill it out. And then the last one is that we would like to remind everyone that the third lecture by Sir Willie Campos will be on June 14 at 2 p.m. And the title of this talk will be Using Fish Egg and Larval Distribution in Designing Ecological Networks of Marine Protected Areas. And again, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry, mapapicture muna tayo.
Okay.
Sir, thank you.
Welcome. Maraming salamat din. Naka-live pa yata tayo.
Opo, sir.
Papicture lang po sana tayo, sir. All
Okay.
panelists. Wait lang.
Teka.